Can you beat Enter the Gungeon without dodge rolling? A challenge that a number of players have attempted, but most are stopped near the end of the run. This is because when reaching the aimless void, after having slayed the high dragon, almost all of the player's items are made inaccessible. But there are still a few gaps that need to be crossed in order to reach the gun that can kill the past, and therefore the run can't be won. The key words there being almost all the player's items. The important exception to this being the rat boots. The rat boots allow the player to temporarily walk over pits. They can be attained consistently through unlocking the 4 rat chests in the resourceful rat's lair after the fight with them. More on that later. The problem is that in order to even get to the rat's lair for the fight, there's a gap that needs to be crossed to get to its entrance in the black powder mine. I then tested if the rat boots could drop from rainbow chests, so that if they did, I could just use rainbow mode to get them, and just win that way on a rainbow run. I used the Enter The Gungeon in order to test if they could drop from rainbow chests, by spawning and opening a bunch of them. I found the other rat gear, but not the boots, so I concluded that they couldn't drop from rainbow chests, although I may very well be mistaken. This meant that I had to do a normal run, but I had to get a gun or item that allowed me to cross the gap so that I could get to the rat's lair. There are a couple of these which can do so on their own, which are on screen now. This means that in order for me to even get one attempt at the challenge, I would have to retry over and over to grind out getting one of them from the chests. This is why I decided to instead simulate the luck that I needed to get these items using Enter The Gungeon. Here is the process that I used. Out of those gap crossing options, I decided which of them were the worst from each rarity. Guns are too useful, as well as anything that grants invincibility. So I decided upon the wax wings, jetpack, and grappling hook as the options. I excluded the A rarity because the partially eaten cheese gives invincibility and lets you eat enemies. It's just too good. The wings only grant flight, the jetpack takes up the active item slot, and the grappling hook is itself and the only item in D tier that works here. Then, when doing every new attempt, I checked the standard 2 chests on the first floor. One of them is always a gun, and the other is always an item. I would then open one, and if it was an item, I would forgo that item and give myself the appropriate item based on the chest's rarity. If I had opened the gun chest, then I would leave it unless I had 2 keys and wanted the gun, in which case I would then use the second key on the item chest. I would then go to the item chest and give myself the matching rarity item. And if the item chest was a red or black chest, then I would instead use the C rarity item of the jetpack. I then had to consider which character I should choose. The best and probably only feasible choice was the bullet. His starting gun is the sword, Blasphemy. It has the rare ability to destroy bullets with its slashes. It will act as a replacement for the dodge roll in situations where bullets can't be strafed through. He also has the neat bonus of being immune to contact damage. Lastly, I rebound the dodge roll to a faraway key so that I couldn't accidentally dodge roll. I then set the right click as the gun menu key, which is something important that I will explain later. With all of those details out of the way, let's begin. As you would expect, the first floor is pretty easy, except for the boss anyway. I try to be careful about the timing of my sword swinging so that I can cut down the enemy's bullets as they shoot out. I also make good use of cover that's plentiful across the first floor. Something to note is that if you have full health, then when you swing Blasphemy, it shoots out an energy sword, which does good damage, but unfortunately it's not very accurate, so it's really only useful for melee attacks. So that's why it's important that you get a gun, because especially when you're dealing with bosses, you want to maintain distance, as the sword can only be swung so fast. After clearing the floor, by which I mean except for the boss, I went to the 2 chest rooms. The first one was a black chest, which after I opened, found that it contained the finished gun. More on that later. I then went to the next room and found that there was a blue chest there, so I used the key on that and found that it had contained Sir Junkin, but as per the rules, I skipped out on him and instead gave myself the jetpack. I then went to the boss, which turned out to be the Trigger Twins, with my finished gun in hand. In terms of difficulty, the Trigger Twins are the second most difficult first floor boss I could have gotten, the most difficult one being the Gatling Gull because of its continuous stream of bullets that it often fires. But with the Trigger Twins there are just double bullet patterns, which are most of the time strafable. As you can see for yourself, the finished gun's excellent damage makes quick work of the Trigger Twins and demolishes them. The finished gun has a neat ability where the last bullet fired in its clip is special in that it's larger, does more damage, and, importantly, it reflects all of the bullets that it comes into contact with, so it's especially useful for a run like this. As a reward from the fight, I get the triple crossbow, and I got the master round, which gives me +2 health. I then used the triple crossbow to check for secret rooms adjacent to the chest rooms, and after that I checked the shop and the exit and found that there was a secret room next to the exit. It contained a brown chest that was unlocked, but it only had 5 casings in it. Because the triple crossbow is a shotgun kind of gun, I chose to sell it to a gun'em, and then I used that extra money in order to afford a key, as otherwise it would have been unlikely that I would have been able to afford it without being unable to later afford the nod key in the second floor shop. I then chose to skip the oubliette as it's a much more difficult floor than the second floor is, and I didn't think it would be worth it. Now I feel that I should probably address the elephant-shaped gun in the room, that being the finished gun. The finished gun may as well be the best gun in the entire game. It does excellent damage, it has perfect accuracy, it has that reflection ability, and it also has a high magazine and clip size for a pistol. Needless to say that this gun is very good, and it definitely made most of the run easier, but it was in no way required to be able to do this run. And also you pretty much have to unlock everything in the game in order to unlock the gun. The gun also gives 5 curse, which makes it more likely for enemies to be jammed, and for chests to be mimics, and for chests to have fuses on them. The second floor was a little bit harder than the first floor, but it still wasn't that difficult. I primarily used the finished gun to clear the floor, and I didn't really have a need to switch to blasphemy to cut through bullets because of there being cover everywhere. I then shot at a black chest as I was checking to see if the chests were mimics, so I wouldn't get jumped by one of them, and this black chest happened to be a mimic, so then it tried to attack, failed, then I killed it, and it dropped the Gungeon blueprint, which what it does is act as a permanent map, which is especially useful for knowing where the secret rooms are. I then went to the shop and bought the nod key for 115 casings, then went to the other chest room and out of the green chest got the Mega Hand, which is a pretty good charged gun. I then went to fight the boss and realized it was Ammoconda, which definitely deserves the hate that it gets. It just shoots out a lot of bullets, which can be lowered by destroying its segments, so it shoots them out, which is what I do, and I managed to get the flawless victory, which awards me with the Gun Knight armor and the Master Round 2, so I get another +2 health. The Gun Knight armor gave me a shield, and it will give me a shield whenever I enter another floor. Then, before I went to the 3rd floor, I went back to the blank shrine that I had found before, used a blank, and it gave me a brown chest, which gave me the lowercase r, which I didn't use, because it's bad. After reaching the 3rd floor, I switched to the Mega Hand to clear it out in order to save ammo on the finished gun. I found the difficulty of the floor to be still pretty manageable. I later got some partial ammo from a room clear drop, which I used on my finished gun. I also found a blue chest, but it had a fuse on it, and I didn't have a key, so I destroyed it, and didn't really get anything for it. Then later in the run, something ridiculous happened. If you had a double take when I got the finished gun, then wait till you see this. I was stunned when I saw it. That's right, the shopkeeper is just selling the rat boots. The whole reason why I was doing all this stuff, just to be able to go into the rat's lair so then I could get the boots in order to travel through the void, but he's just selling them here. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, I didn't buy them for the sake of not ruining the challenge. I then later found another blue chest which contained a bomb, which I then used to open the secret room that it was in before swapping back to the jetpack. I got a big iron from the green mimic that was in there, and then I also got a speed up from the other green chest that was there. After that, I decided that it probably wasn't worth it trying to fight the boss, as I would use ammo from the finished gun that I intended on using for clearing the rat maze, and I probably wasn't going to get a master round from the boss. So then I went and found the trap door. I then blanked open the 2 secret walls, and then I used the nod key in order to gain entrance to the rat's lair. I entered the maze and then followed my maze's directions, which is up, down, right, left, down, left. I then took some ammo and went into the boss fight and started blasting. The rat first does his cheese gathering attack, for which I switch for blasphemy and slice through the cheese, which by the way, its hitbox is closer than it appears. And then you can also slice the cheese once it's been gathered by the rat. After he has jumped into the air, you can then get rid of the attack by slashing as the cheese is coming out. The quick kunai can easily be dodged, but the triple kunai should be dodged by first standing close to the rat so that then there are larger gaps in between them, so then they can be easily dodged. You should also be standing to the bottom right of the rat so then when he does his spiral cheese shots, then you can just step to the left, and when he does his whip attack, that way he won't shoot the whip out at you before he starts swinging it. Now I will explain the gun menu, which I haven't really had to use because of the finished gun's reflectability. When the gun menu button is pressed, it then shows you the guns that you have, and it significantly slows down the game's speed, which allows the player to tactically switch guns mid-fight. In this case, it is used to switch to blasphemy quickly in order to slash through bullets, and then can switch back to your damage-dealing gun. And this technique is particularly needed during this fight, as it is quite long. When the rat does use his whip attack, then you can just switch to blasphemy and then make a slice near him, so then you can just stand next to him and keep shooting at him, but be ready to move out of the way when he does his quick kunai after the attack is over. And the first part of the fight is just a matter of doing these things over and over till he goes to the next phase. After he retreats, I follow him, and so begins the Metal Gear rat fight. But before we get into the fight, there's a huge threat that this phase poses. One of the boss's attacks includes a big laser that goes quite fast across the screen. Now it is possible to backstep and avoid the laser, but I'm not sure how consistent it is. Now this laser wouldn't be so much of a problem if it only did a damage, but it also lights the player on fire, which is a huge problem because the only way I know of, practically, that you can use in order to get rid of fire is to roll, but I can't do that. So if this attack hits me and I don't happen to have one of the few fire immunity items, then I'll be lit on fire and I'll keep taking damage until
you get nothing! You lose! Good day, sir!
That's why it's important that you bring as many blanks and blank effects as you can for this part of the fight. And so this part of the fight is kind of made a DPS check because of this. So I also strongly recommend not destroying any of the parts of the mech so as to not reduce its number of attacks that it can do, so that the chances of it doing that laser attack is not increased, which I think is what would happen. So now on to how the fight went. The minion summon attack poses no real danger to the bullet, as they have so little health they can just be sliced through with blasphemy, and also they can't do damage to the bullet as he doesn't take contact damage. Then for the slam attack, just slice through the 3 layers of bullets instead of dodge rolling to the sides. For the cannon attack, you can slice through its targeting reticle and then move aside when the shell is coming down, and then move towards its center and slice before the bullets get to you. Be sure to only blink the long laser attack and wait as much as you're willing to so you can get more damage in before the attack comes up again. Bullet circle attack is kind of a tedious attack to avoid. You could just keep blasphemy out and keep slashing instead of dodge rolling and not do any damage to the mech during this attack. Or the better tactic you can use is gun menu to your gun, shoot some, then gun menu back to blasphemy before the circle goes in, and then switch back and keep repeating this until the attack is over. Although an easier technique to use would be to use blasphemy to slice part of the circle, then always be by that part of the circle with the hole in it, and then just keep shooting while maintaining that part and the bullets should go past you. The multi-laser attack would just be avoided the same way by sidestepping, but hopefully you have an item with flight, so then you can just fly around and just not get hit by the singular bullets that come out of the lasers. Thinking about it now, the fight would be quite hard with trying to do it with an item that only grants you flight for a limited amount of time. The last attack you should have to worry about is the missile attack, which when you realize you're starting it, go to one side of the arena and then slowly move to the other side of the arena. So then you have as least bullets as possible heading level at you, so then you can hopefully just dodge around them, and you could also slice through them with blasphemy. Then with the second phase of the rat fight out of the way, we move on to the third and easiest part of the fight, the punch-out phase. Now conveniently, the keybinds for the punch-out fight are independent of the keybinds for the rest of the game, which is useful because the dodge key is not used at all in this fight. The fight could also still be done fine without ducking. This phase is important because this is where the rat keys are earned, which I need at least 4 of in order to guarantee that I'll get the rat boots. On the screen now are the requirements for getting each of the possible 6 keys. I get 1 key from starting the fight. He taunts me, so then I punch him when he flashes in order to get a star. Then whenever he attacks, I duck, so then I can punch him. I then end the first phase with a super punch, giving me another rat key, and then I duck his Casey swing. He then starts to do his punch series, which I first block and then I punch him on his vulnerability frame in between them. He then tries to heal using some cheese, which I cancel by right punching when he tries to pull in the cheese towards his face, giving me another star. He then tries a tail slap, which I block and then retaliate. He goes for the punch series again, which I counter. I then counter it once more and finish off that phase with a 3-star punch. And then I get a 3rd rat key, and I duck his Casey swing again, and he begins his 3rd and final punch out phase. He tries to throw an ammo crate at me, which I punched right back at him. He then tries to lunge at me, which I then duck and punch him, then goes for the heal, which I stop. He then goes for the lunge again, but I counter it this time by punching after I can't see his eyes anymore. I then interrupt his punch series and get the 3rd star, which I then use in order to finish the fight, which grants me 2 more rat keys, giving me a total of 5. I then shoot the rat some and gather my loot that I gained from the fight. I then check for mimics amongst his rat chests, which I kill 1, and then I grab the rest of the loot from the chests. I then chose to not take the shortcut to the 5th floor. On the 4th floor, I made good use of the Elementaler, also known as the cheese gun. It has the unique ability to encheese enemies when shot at, and then once they die, they leave a pool of cheese that also encheeses enemies. The gun itself does good damage, has great accuracy, has a large clip size, as well as infinite ammo, making it very useful. I also made good use of the partially eaten cheese, which I mentioned earlier, that gives me invincibility, flight, and the ability to eat enemies. But then after that goes off, then I have to switch back to the jetpack to make sure that I don't get lit on fire, especially in the 5th floor coming up. I found Winchester and showed him my excellent shooting skills, and he awarded me with the Fight Saber, which would have been a good gun to use given its ability to reflect bullets, but I already had the finished gun to do that instead. Because the gun gives curse, I dropped it near the boss room, so that way I wouldn't have to deal with a jammed boss possibly. It also couldn't be stolen because I killed the rat, and additionally I also had his 4 items, so he wouldn't have been able to steal from me anyway. I also found the Hegemony rifle, the Ring of Chest Vampirism, I got the Icebreaker from the Gun Muncher, and I also got the Corsair. I then fought the Wallmonger, which was a pretty easy fight, given that the Wallmonger's attacks are dodged mostly by strafing anyway, and given my equipment. As a reward, I got the Cartographer's Ring, but given that I had the Gungeon blueprint, it was redundant. I then sold some stuff before going to the 5th floor. I used the RC rocket launcher to clear the majority of the floor and switch to the cheese gun when it ran out of ammo. I was also careful to re-engage the jetpack after using the partially eaten cheese. I got the Heart Purse, Stone Dome, and the shotgun Full of Love. And then I started the fight with the High Dragon. This fight is more blatant about having to dodge roll through attacks, but all of the dodge rolling that would need to be done can just be replaced with blasphemy swings. As such, the ricochet rounds can be avoided by going into a corner and slashing bullets that get near you. The burst attack can still be dodged by strafing. The breath attack could just be slashed through while moving towards the dragon. For the wave attack, you would go into a corner and slash at any bullets that got near you on your horizontal level. After getting to the 2nd phase, I then used blasphemy to slash through the bullets in order to go through the safe circles, and then I blasted away at the dragon's heart. I got through the attack again and finally beat the High Dragon. But before I went to go get the gun that can kill the pest, there was something important that I needed to grab first. That's right, I'm also going to beat the bullets past without dodge rolling. Something important to note about going to the past is that by doing so I lose almost all of my items. One of these exceptions is having more than 2 blanks, in which case you would still keep those blanks for the floor. But one exception that applies to me in this case is the Galactic Medal of Valor. This item is unlocked by beating the Marines past, and apparently increases your damage by 30% to bosses. I had forgotten that I had this item, and also that it transfers over to the past. I only realized I had it when I was looking through the footage to make this video, so that was helpful for doing the cannon fight. but again, it's not necessary. Besides that, there's also the fact that the blasphemy that you get isn't the final version, so it's not able to destroy bullets, so that makes this pass harder than the regular gameplay was. The 2 chain gunners before I gun them can be pretty easily defeated without taking any damage. First, rush one of them and keep swinging as much as you can, and then back off when it starts swinging its mace. So then that way you can get out of the range of that, and if it decides to fling the mace over, then you're supposed to move in the direction where it's coming from, but you should also be moving away from the chain gunner. You should be able to kill the one before the other one really gets to cause any trouble. Then you can move on to a gun'em. I believe that a gun'em is the harder of the 2 bosses. Always make sure to try to maintain as much distance from him as possible, and make sure those barrels are broken so that his orb shot isn't blocked by it and you have to last out longer. You also should maintain a medium distance when he's doing that attack, so that way it's much easier to redirect the attack back at him. With his bullet spray attack, you just have to be quick and look, and try to find a path through and do that strafing to not get hit. By far his hardest attack to dodge is the lightning attack. The attack happens pretty fast and it's hard to tell where the bullets are zagging to. I would suggest you use your blanks on this attack. He also has a fake magic ball attack, but that's not really hard to dodge. So just repeat until you get the cannon then. The cannon fight is really a matter of patience and quick reaction timing, but not as much, I would say, as a gun'em. But you should always be watching to see if he's doing his quick draw attack. That doesn't have much telegraphing, and it can be hard to dodge if you're close. For the ring of bullets that he shoots out, I would really suggest you not trying to go in and get hits in, because that will likely cause you to take hits yourself. Make sure that you don't let cannon land on you, as he will do knockback to you and will likely launch you into one of the couple pits that unlock as the fight goes on. I would only recommend hitting him after he does the slam attack and then going in and hitting him. And then I would also recommend hitting him while he's doing the wind up for the circular bullets that turn into bats. Just while he's shooting those, I'd recommend going to his other side and hitting him once or twice and then backing off. Even if you weren't doing a no dodge roll challenge, you shouldn't be dodge rolling that much in this fight anyway. I eventually won the fight, but I cut it far closer than was necessary. So yes, you can beat Enter the Gungeon without dodge rolling. Take that, dodge roll. My sources and a link to the unedited full run are in the description.